Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, proceed to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to thank my colleagues who have taken time to share their thoughts on this motion to set up the Senate Business Committee for the third session of this Senate, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleagues for the things that they've raised during debate. Many issues, Mr. Speaker, those that are concerned, many broadly support the team and appreciate the work that our SBC has done. Of course, I have listened to the concerns of members of the Jubilee Party. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, they are not here. I'm sure there are better avenues they can use, Mr. Speaker, and the standing orders provide for ways which they can address the challenge and the situation they presently find themselves in, Mr. Speaker. By and large, Mr. Speaker, many of our colleagues appreciate the important role of SBC, especially in scheduling business and ensuring that we have business to transact as a House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join also my colleagues in passing tribute to the world record holder, the departed friend, Kelvin Kiptum, together with his coach, who unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, met their demise 2 nights ago. As a country, we are in mourning, Mr. Speaker. This young man had a life full of promise. There was a great career ahead of him. Many of us who are fans of athletics were looking forward actually to the duel in Paris later on this year during the Olympics between him and Eliud Kipchoge, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate that as fate would have it, Kelvin will not be there. Of course, there are lessons that we learn, but of course, Mr. Speaker, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we can do? So many of our athletes have departed in this particular way. Many of them world beaters. Some of them were lucky to survive. You'd remember, I think, Rudisha, 2 or 3, almost at the prime of his career also, had a similar incident, and in fact, ended his career with an injury from which he never recovered from, Mr. Speaker. And so many of these young athletes. And it points out to a lack, Mr. Speaker, perhaps of maybe mentorship or something that you could do to these young people that do so much for us as a country, yet we pay so little to. And many times we just remember them when they have passed on, like we have seen. You remember of Samuel Wanjiro, Mr. Speaker, met his death in almost similar circumstances through an accident, Mr. Speaker, that couldn't be explained. It's unfortunate. Though we are blessed with abundant talent as a country, Mr. Speaker, there is a lesson therein for us, that there is a lot more that we need to do other than just celebrate and tweet and take pictures with our stars when they return from victory. We need to invest in them as well. There are many things that Kenyans are saying, and we must learn to listen. The Minister for Sports, I saw he visited the home of Kiptum yesterday, but then we look forward to hearing what is it that we as a country have learned over time, because this is not the first athlete at the peak of their career that we have lost. You remember many of them have found themselves even in love triangles and many such kind of things, Mr. Speaker, and have ended their life at very young age, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to say fare thee well, Kelvin. We know that we would have wished to have you longer. I was certain, as a fan of athletics, Mr. Speaker, that this is a gentleman who was going actually to do the sub-2 in a competitive marathon. And I thought that was going to happen in this year's Olympic, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate, but such is the fate of man, Mr. Speaker. Many are our plans, but unfortunately not all of them come to pass. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I wish to urge my colleagues that we take our work as a Senate seriously. Mr. Speaker, last week I had the opportunity to address a gathering of the directorate, of the staff of the directorate of the Speaker's office. And there were certain very grim statistics that were read out to us. And I wish I had mentioned this when the House was a bit more full when we began this session, that this is the first time that Senate has been adjourned close to 10 times for lack of quorum in the last 2 sessions. I hope we don't have a repeat of that, Mr. Speaker, because there's nobody who came to this House unopposed. All of us, Mr. Speaker, there was somebody we were competing with, somebody who felt that they deserve a better chance to represent the people that we represent here than ourselves. Ordinary citizens woke up early, queued, voted, and say that I put my trust in Eddie to speak for me, on my behalf in the Senate of the Republic. It cannot be then, Mr. Speaker, that that same Eddie cannot find just 3 hours on a single afternoon, 3 times a week, to come and speak on behalf of those people. I don't understand. I struggle, Mr. Speaker, to understand where people disappear to. Such that, yes, of course, Eddie is an example. I must tell the people of Migori that I have seen many Migori senators, so to speak, and you are as fine as they come, Senator Eddie. I celebrate you because of your diligence and industry in this house. Every afternoon, you are among the very last people to leave this house. And I'd wish that many of our colleagues could take you from that and appreciate that this is a rare opportunity and a privilege, that thousands others wish to sit in this house and speak on behalf of residents. Yet, on many afternoons, we find ourselves less than 10 or 15 people in the house. It's my sincere hope that we will take our job a bit more seriously, Mr. Speaker. I hope we shall hold governors to account. Citizens are crying. Many of our counties are in very embarrassing situations, Mr. Speaker. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, we have had this discussion about the current system of accountability that we have, where Auditor General sends a report to a particular committee, a report comes which we never discuss individually, and sometimes they're just lumped together, Mr. Speaker, and that becomes business as usual. We need to do better. Each of us must be able to look each other in the eye and speak to one another as colleague senators and say, I have a problem in my county. This is what the governor is doing. As my colleague senators, help me on behalf of my people. You know, in terms of health, in terms of ECDs, leakage of revenue. I want to propose, in fact, to you colleagues, that just in the same way that the national government is going cashless in its revenue collection, we need to push these governors to install systems also that are cashless. Many of the revenue leakage processes in our county, money is just being collected in sacks, and it is never banked, Mr. Speaker. Yet, we preside over the same, Mr. Speaker. If there is a year that the Senate of this republic must hold governors to account if you want to keep devolution alive in this country, then it is 2024, my dear brothers and sisters. If we do not do it, then Kenyans will give up and say they are all children of the same mother. So they may call themselves senators or governors, but they are one and the same. I don't believe that that is what is expected of us, Mr. Speaker. It is my hope that as a House, we shall rise up to the occasion and ensure that Kenyans enjoy the fruits of devolution as they had hoped in 2010 when they voted for these constitutions. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Honorable